I can even.
All right, it's 7 o'clock. Welcome everybody on May 7th. And I'm going to call this council meeting of June 14th, 2023 to order. And I would like Sherry to please call the roll.
Mr. Everman?
Here.
Mr. Fish?
Here.
Mrs. Irish Glass? Here. Mr. Yankee?
Here.
Mr. Richmond?
Here.
Mr. Vincent?
Here.
Okay, now slightly out of order what I usually do. We're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I know we have everyone's meeting a very celebratory event. We have a couple very short housekeeping items to go over. We'll get them out of the way and then we will move on to Officer Jesser. So the first is the reading and disposal of the journal. Does anybody have any comments or corrections from last month's minutes? Do I have a motion to approve?
I have one. I'm sorry, Mayor Spencer. I do have one or two items.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
One second. On page 3, I just wanted to add the change. The change for the special election that you reported out on was for making changes to the state constitution to change the voting threshold from 50% to 60%. That should be reflected. And on the same page, I believe under the service department, I believe it was 22 tons of asphalt that was put down, not 2,200 tons, but I wasn't quite sure about that. That might just,
Thank you for pointing that out.
that's a lot of.
I appreciate that. That's right. I should have brought that up because Sherry and I were laughing earlier that it couldn't be 2,200 tons.
Yeah.
It's 6 feet high.
Right.
Thank you.
And then the last thing is just that it might be nice to note the under Mr. Filarski's report, the duration of the Miles Road work. I think he said it was through the end of August. People might be interested to know when it's going to stop, when it's only one lane. I believe that's what Jeff said.
Any concerns there? Okay, do I have a motion to approve as amended by Councilman Vincent? Yes, I make a motion to approve as amended. Second. Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Fish, seconded by Council President Yankee. Please roll call, Sherry.
Mr. Everman?
Yes.
Mr. Fish?
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass? Yes. Mr. Yankee?
Yes.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to move up number 5 on the agenda to be the third item, which is appointments and confirmations. I'd like to just say, I know Officer Jesser started back at the end of February and we had to take some time to have this more celebratory swearing in, but I'm glad it's here and I'm excited for it. I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Diesel to say a few words before we do the actual swearing in. Chief?
Right. Thank you. Well, it comes with great pleasure, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there was somebody else that we all wish was here today. I know that Dennis Jesser comes to us from the great city of Bedford Heights. He was a full-time officer with the city of Bedford Heights. Prior to Bedford Heights, he was the city of Cleveland, where he served with Bedford Heights since 1999. Dennis comes from a long family of law enforcement, where he has current family that are policemen in Northeast Ohio and retired. Dennis comes to us with a tremendous amount of experience, both from a tactical standpoint and community based. And I think we all know that, those are the kind of people that we're looking for the Moreland Police Department. They have a good community foundation. and getting to meet Dennis, I had several conversations with Mayor Fritz. And, you know, Mayor Fritz spoke very highly of Dennis as a human being, as a father, as a man, and as a police officer. And I can't think of any better person to give those kind of accolades to an individual. That's person coming from me. So it comes with great pleasure. He's been with us since February. So outgoing Chief Wyant, this was his last hire. So this is technically Kevin's, you know what I mean? So, but I'm glad that I can be here today to present to you, to present to everybody, is Dennis Jesser as a full-time police officer for the Village of Moreland Hills. And then after the oath, I'll present you with your badge if you have one of your family members come up to pay it. So thank you very much.
Okay, I'm gonna come around with one more. Not too long of an oath. So could you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Dennis Jesser,
I, Dennis Jedger,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United
to
States,
support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Charter and ordinances
the Charter and ordinances
of the Village of Moreland
of the
Hills,
Village of Moreland Hills.
and that I will faithfully,
That I will faithfully,
honestly, and impartially
honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties of patrol officer of the Village of Moreland Hills,
discharge the duties of patrol officer in the Village of Moreland Hills,
State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
during my continuance in said office.
during my continuance in said office.
Congratulations. We do, and one for our records, and you sign, and I will be your witness.
As I stated earlier, Dennis, I'm sorry, I skipped over this. The most important part is Dennis's wife is also a police officer for the city of North Royalton, and they're the parents of 3 wonderful children. So, Dennis, nothing more. Here you go. There you go. All right. Thanks.
It goes right in your butt.
I know that. Congratulations.
So for all those here with the Jesser plan, we're going to reconvene over at the police department for refreshments and coffee and cake in the basement. So we don't want to end the meeting anymore. And unless anybody wants to stay, you know. Okay.
Okay. So that was great. That was nice. So the next item on the agenda is action upon any matter in which any resident wishes to present to council. So do we have residents in the audience who may wish to make comments or present to council?
Potentially, yeah, maybe. I don't know how the meeting is flowing tonight, but I'd be happy to swear in case I do have something to say.
I don't believe that it's a requirement to be sworn in, because this is not a public hearing, it is a public meeting. But if you wish, this is the time, if you do wish to make comments, to make them.
Oh. May I ask a question? are we speaking tonight? Are you all deciding tonight on the Hiram Trail, busing route? Is that being discussed tonight?
Yes, it will. The council will be hearing from the president, the head of the planning commission. And he will present the recommendation that was made by the planning commission last Wednesday.
May I?
No, I was just gonna say, Mayor, if I could add, different a bit from the planning commission, whereas residents comment, this is not a quote unquote, public hearing with the swearing in. And rather than wait until the matter comes up for council's deliberation, yet this is, as the Mayor mentioned, the point where if you have any comments regarding any matter, this would be the time to do so.
All right, I would like to share some additional thoughts from the prior meeting that I had. So may I?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I'm Stacy, I guess I don't have to swear, but I am Stacy Fider. I'm a resident of Moreland Hills on Hiram Trail with my husband. And I respectfully present some ideas to you that I've thought of some more about the issue with regard to the busing. The Orange School using the emergency access road for buses for the five-year term, which is off of Hiram Trail. Make sense? Am I okay, Mayor? Okay, and I would just like to read, if I may, some additional thoughts that I had, just so I can sleep easy knowing that I've shared my ideas with all of you. So I wrote a letter to the mayor in response, and these are just the ideas. So as you can all imagine, the decision to allow the Orange school buses continued conditional use of the emergency access road off of Hiram Trail is disturbing and disappointing to the residents. One question specific to the 5-year plan is, this is obviously you're not going to answer it, but this is my question. What does the village of Moreland Hills, our village, expect of the Orange School Board in terms of traffic solutions over the next 5 years? And is the expectation of the village that the emergency access road be returned to emergency access only? So my question is, at the fulfillment of the 5-year plan, what is it during that period of time? What are all of you expecting of the school board? What actions are expected? And another set of questions that pertain to how the village of Moreland Hills plans to maintain safety and enforce traffic laws on Hiram Trail going forward. It's not long, but it's a little bit of a list. Hiram Trail in the village as a whole has seen an influx of traffic due to the development projects in Pepper Pike, along Chagrin Boulevard, and the development projects in Orange Village, such as the highway ramps and Pinecrest. Specifically, construction vehicles, commercial vehicles, and commercial buses are using Hiram Trail as a shortcut. We imagine the GPS apps are directing drivers to Hiram Trail now that Pinecrest is on the map. And rush hour traffic in the morning and evening completely ignores traffic speed limits. Will the village be introducing a 20-mile-per-hour school zone on Hiram Trail for the buses approaching the entrance of the emergency access road in the morning and in the afternoon? So will it become a school zone? This would require a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. Will there be regular police presence on Hiram Trail now that there will be more children involved in that on our road? Will the village install speed limit detectors along Hiram Trail to enforce 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, which is gravely ignored? And will the restrictions on commercial vehicles on Hiram Trail be enforced? So right now there's a sign that says no through trucks. There's a sign that says no weight limits 4 tons, and there's a sign that says no engine braking. The village of Moreland Hills is being negatively impacted by the development projects in surrounding towns. It seems the village needs to take a proactive and forward view of the future of the village, or everyone will shortcut through our streets. And then I ask for time with you, perhaps at another time. So I do think, I do hope the decision to provide access to the buses for the next 5 years is denied tonight. That is my hope. If it is not, if it is confirmed, because it's the recommendation of the planning committee, I hope that the traffic rules are much more strongly reinforced on the road, not just for the residents and for the village, but also because it's now a school bus area and children are getting more access to the road. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Minor. I'm not prepared today to address all those individual questions. However, I will be reaching out to you and we can discuss together. And I have some other ideas about how they may be, some of those questions may be vetted. It's just not tonight the right time to do that, but I will do that. So thank you for coming tonight and making your comments. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Are there any other residents that would like to speak before we move on? Okay, the next thing on the agenda is communication. Let's see here. Yes, reports, communications from the mayor and other municipal officials. And I guess I'll start. Try to make my comments brief this evening, but I have a few things to just update council on. First has to do with solar. I know I keep saying it's delayed, it's delayed. I got another message on solar earlier this week in the project, and there have been 2 additional investors that are planning to have a proposal to Mike Wise and his team by tomorrow. That's what she's told me. So soon I will bring to you what I have. I just don't have it yet. I wanted to keep you in the loop. I also wanted to share with you that, and I won't go into a lot of detail, but we really had a lot of fun fishing day. I was only there in the morning. I understand some in the morning, some afternoon. It was well attended in the morning at least. And I would say that Council President Yankee's family did quite well fishing. But it was a lot of fun, and I want to thank everybody who's involved. You know, Gary Byers, I would say Gary Byers in particular, since he really organized it, but also Chief Dietzel and all the service department that was there as well. So thank you. There are a few things I'd like to point out that are upcoming. First one is there's going to be a coyote presentation at the Orange branch of the public library on June 22nd from 7 to 8 p.m. It's subtitled Our Town and Our Canines and Our Canine, Our Town and Country Canines. And so if you're interested in that, I know in past years it's been quite a topic. A lot of residents have asked about coyotes, and there'll be some there. Questions answered. On June 24th, there's going to be an event at the Pepper Pike Learning Center. It's called Touch a Truck. And I understand from our service director as well as our police chief, we will have vehicles there. So we'll likely Pepper Pike and Orange as well. But I think we're going to have some trucks from the service department and some vehicles from the police. So kids will be able to touch them and check them out. So if you're interested in that, that's on June 24th. And then June 29th, we're planning a community event day. Oh, excuse me, July 29th. Yeah, July 29th, we're planning a community event day. So I just wanted to get that date out to you guys. We have Opus 216 playing that evening around 6, but we're still working on the schedule. We're thinking maybe have something a couple hours before where we have some activities and we have some ability to meet council and the mayor and discuss things there. So we're still, and we welcome ideas if you've got thoughts about that, but we're looking at potentially a food truck and having some water lemonade or something, some type of refreshments. Maybe pies. Okay, we'll think about that too. But just put that on your calendar if you have interest. We'd love to have everybody here. Let's see. And then if you have other ideas for some of the Thursday evenings up at the pavilion, please let me know. When I was at the fishing day, Shannon Sharp, she offered to do another gardening event. I went to hers last year. I really liked it. I thought I learned a lot about gardening, and it was a lot about garden pests and troubles that she helped us identify and think about ways to remedy them. So I think we're still working on exactly what the focus will be, but it'll be something gardening. And we'll have a date. That should be sometime in July, and we'll get the date out as soon as we have it. So that is all I have, unless there's any questions from anybody. Questions or? Oh, I do have one last thing. So I also, I talked about this last week, and I'm going to bring it up again. We have been continuing to work on a survey. I think we're very, very close to it. If there's additional thoughts or feedback you have, I talked with or communicate with Councilwoman Irish Glass just the last few days, and tried to incorporate a little bit more of her feedback, as well as Councilman Richmond's, who sent me some more feedback. So doing my best to try to get everything in there, but if there's any other thoughts people have, let me know. I really appreciate everybody's help. And I did, by the way, follow up with the Diversity Inclusion Commission, and in particular spoke with the chair, Lori Eiler, and she is very pleased with the questions that we ended up. While they'd rather have the full survey that they're talking about, she's very pleased because we picked the 3 most important questions to the commission to include, and they thought that they could use that as a start to learn a little bit about health issues. So, are there any other questions on that or comments? Or?
You need a motion to include the diversity and inclusion, or?
Yes, I would like to have a motion for that, because I think both council and the mayor should agree, and I can say I agree, so I don't need a motion, but I would like to have one from you guys if someone would make it.
Do we need a motion for the whole survey, or just?
You may do for the whole survey as well, but the real requirement from a statute or from an ordinance point of view is the diversity and inclusion, because that's set forth in their ordinance created. But I would love to have one.
Should we wait until we see a final?
I was gonna ask if that precluded, additional diversity and inclusion related questions, and if it would, then I also would think it would make sense to wait until the final.
Okay, well, we can certainly do that. If you are willing to make a motion on those 3 questions, I would like that, because I'd like to be able to do this in July if possible.
Over approval of those questions first, and
Yes.
approval of the
Yes,
survey that could have more diversity and inclusion related questions.
correct. Well, I don't anticipate it will have more than those right now. I mean,
Yeah, the only ones I was referring to was the additional demographic questions beyond the ones that we had. Whether I didn't know whether the final was considering adding those.
I was not planning on adding those. If that's something that council really feels strongly about, we can revisit it again, but I feel like we're at about 8 minutes on the survey, and I just want to keep it under the limit. I think one of the important things is simplicity and speed of completion, balanced with thoroughness, in my opinion. But that's up to you guys. Wait, how do you feel?
Yeah, trying to quickly thought my thought was, in addition to age and how long you've been in the village, that a list or a question of if they wanted to answer what gender, what race, what religion, what marital status they identified with, just to help the Diversity Inclusion Commission identify who they're to target their next projects for. And as they mentioned, when we met, easier to make sure they're celebrating diversity and being inclusive if they have a little bit better idea of the makeup of Moreland Hills and how diverse we actually are. That was just my thought regarding adding those.
Okay, any other comments on that? Does the rest of the council agree?
I'm sorry.
I don't think it would add a whole lot of time to answer those 3 questions, so, it is or isn't one or the other, so.
Okay. Anybody else?
What were the three items? I didn't catch, Steve. What were the three additional?
Actually, for what gender do you identify with which race / ethnicity do you identify with which religion, if any, do you identify with, and what is your marital status?
Okay, I'm not comfortable with the religion one. I don't know that, can we ask a religion question on a survey like that? Are we allowed to do that? Maybe that's a law director question. But the other ones are fine with me.
Sure. That would, as you indicated there, was that a voluntary response question?
Voluntary.
Yeah. I think it's okay as long as it's framed as a voluntary.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine then. Yeah, I agree with Jeanette. I don't think it'll add a lot of time. I would question though whether it actually gives the D&I committee much useful information, because it's not technically a statistically significant, it may not be representative or whatever, and but I suppose it's information they could use to develop something. So I see your point.
Bill, do you,
I could make a motion for the three that we have. I know you said you want to get it out in July, so I guess we'd have to revisit again. For anything more than that carryover next month without session. So, well, then I'll make a motion to add the three diversity and inclusion options. Because they wrote, correct, written by the commission for.
And again, I'm sorry, just to clarify, would that preclude additional questions to be added?
No, I just said these, it's just for
Right.
these three, it's not saying.
Great,
these three only.
thank you for clarifying that. I second that.
okay, we have a motion to add those three questions as defined by Council President Young, seconded by Councilman Richmond. Clerk, would you-
Mr. Overman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish,
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass,
Yes.
Mr. Yankee,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on that today? No? Okay, good. So that means I finished with my report unless there's any questions for me. Okay, then I'm gonna move on to, let's see, we do not have a police chief here, so we do not have a report from the police chief. We do have the service director here. Mr. DeWater, do you have a report this evening?
For this bring people up to date, we did receive our new rubbish truck. It is in service now. The new chipper will be here week of July. And with that being said, all the old vehicles and stuff added. Stuff that's going to come in later in the year, but the treasurer wants to get all the items on the auction site now that we're going to be getting rid of. So you'll be seeing those well here within the next couple of days.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for the service director? Okay, we have our engineer on Zoom, Mr. Pilarski. Do you have a report for us this evening?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Just a few things. The asphalt program is up and running. Our contractor, Crossroads Asphalt, is out. They've been working in the village already. On Berkeley, River Mountain, Mountain View, and Riverstone. They'll be getting some intermediate paving done through Friday, and then doing some additional work on those streets in preparation to put the finish coat on. And then they're working over on many other streets, various streets, doing repairs, spot repairs here and there. We have one project that ODOT has in the village this year. It's gonna be starting up some point in July. That's on Route 87. Some of you might recall that we sold a little property for that project about 2 years ago, actually. but it's over by the Woodland Glen plant pump station area over there by Windrush. And they're going to be actually filling in the existing arch bridge from the bottom up. So there will not be a bridge there anymore when they're done. So there'll be minimal traffic impacts there. So that should not be an issue. And that's all I have. I'll be hanging around for the ordinances in case there's any questions, because I have a few on the agenda tonight.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Any questions? Okay, then we have finance report. We do not have a finance report tonight. Prashant was unable to make it. He had something come up at the last meeting. No building report this evening. Mr. Hanner, do you have a law report for us this evening?
I don't want to break the trend, no report this evening.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Hanna. So that concludes reports and commission or communications from mayor and other officials. So let me see here. So that means we have communications, petitions, and claims. None?
No.
Okay. That means reports of committees. Let's see, the first one would be BZA and planning. Mr. Richmond, I know you have other presentations this evening. Do you have any additional?
Just thank you, Mayor. Just real briefly, Planning Commission had 4 basic agenda items, 2 of which 33650 Jackson and Hiram House are the subject of conditional use certificates and conditional use modifications. So I'll describe those when we get to it. We also approved a new dwelling for 4015 South Center Road, and also approved modifications interior and exterior to 30 Laurel Court.
Thank you, Mr. Richmond. Next report is for facilities. Mr. Fish, you have a report this evening?
Not a lot on it. Let's see, police department restrooms are getting pricing on that. Todd has also picked out the bollards he liked to work on seeing what those are going to cost us. Ted's working on getting City Hall wallpaper removed and painting. The Jackson Valley plant, one impeller was replaced. We're waiting for another. It's on back order. Everything else is running as designed. The Green Tree pump station, was pulled out again, flushable wipes. So it's been cleaned and back and running. Blowers in the Green Tree station will be replaced in August. That brought up that the equipment that we might be able to use to replace the Muffin Monster is cost efficient enough that there might be an opportunity to buy 2 with the new thing and also thing that Jeff was talking about, the EQ tank for Green Tree. We have an ordinance for that today. Jackson Valley Force Main project, again, it's a change order coming. Other than that, the park continues to get cleaned up, and the service department has been working actually on all of the cul-de-sacs to replace missing dirt and plants, but they haven't started planting yet because of the drought. So that's it.
Hopefully, is that good?
Yeah.
We'll see. Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Fish. Any questions, Karen? Okay, then let's move on to roads and safety, Mr. Emmerman.
Thank you. So you can read the full bit in the minutes. I'm going to highlight 2 items. One, we had a conversation about line of sight on the roads and obstructions to line of sight. This was specifically brought up about a certain bend in on Pebble Brook, but the police chief said he was looking at it more broadly with his officers. And Mr. Dewater informed us that what you look at is truck height, right? Whether if you're at an intersection, whether the standard is 90 feet, we draw a diagonal and be able to have line of sight. But not necessarily that we go right to that amount, but that's just kind of the standard. And then around bends, I guess we have the right to clear right away, if there's any line of sight obstruction. So, village is gonna be driving around and looking to see if there's any of these potential line of sight hazard areas and addressing them. If we do identify those, it's not like the village just goes out and does the work. There's gonna be conversation or at least notice to residents to. The other item I wanted to bring up was private street plowing. So there are a small handful of private streets in Moreland Hills, and some of them have agreements with us that the village does their plowing. Right now, the cost, the price on that we charge is $2 a linear foot to those streets. And Mr. DeWater is going to be developing a recommendation, potential increase to that. So what was first proposed was increasing it to $2.50 per linear foot, but there's some discussion about what metrics we're tying that to. Some of the things brought up were maybe gas prices or consumer price index. And so sometime in the future, Mr. DeWater is going to come back to the committee and propose an amount of increase tied to a specific metric. And just, we look at this every 5 years. So that's why it's being brought up now. That's it. Thanks, Barry.
Oh,
yeah.
One quick question, that's on an annual basis.
Yeah, on an annual basis. And that's, that's their choice. So not every street has gone with the village. I guess some streets hire their own private plows to do it. We had a conversation that we generally think it's a good service that we offer to those private streets, and it seems like a good idea that our trucks do it since they're already out there, and for just general safety reasons, it makes sense for us to do it. But of course, we need to charge a fair price for that. And as we're reevaluating this every 5 years, it's good to just have a metric to tie it to.
So, thank you.
I have a note here.
Oh, you wait, sorry.
Yes.
So as a reminder, we split the 2023 asphalt program into two. I guess we'll call it the smaller roads, and then also the larger roads, Jackson Road and Michigan River. So I made a mistake in the last minutes. I said that the village engineer was already developing specifications and advertisements for bid. But I was corrected. I made a mistake in those minutes. So if you saw that, he was developing plans. But now I'd like to make a motion to allow the village engineer to develop specification and advertise for bids for Jackson Road and Michigan River Road for surfacing project.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Emmett, seconded by Councilman Fish to advertise for bids for resurfacing of Jackson Road. Could you call the roll, please, Karen?
Mr. Lumberman?
Yes.
Mr. Fish?
Yes.
Mrs. Irish West?
Yes.
Mr. Yankee?
Yes.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Emmerman. Lastly, we have Parks Commission report from May 15th. Mr. Donkey, do you have a report?
Yes, thank you. I'll be brief. As the mayor mentioned, July 29th was 216 in conjunction with larger community event. So mark your calendars. Head for the Hills continues to proceed. Currently working on sponsors as well as logistics. So that is progressing. And we're working on having a food truck as well. So we're trying to make it a little larger than last time, not just focused on the hike and run, but stay afterward and enjoy yourself. Other than that, I'll let the minutes speak for themselves. Any questions?
No, thank you, Council President Yonke, appreciate it. That ends the reports, so let's move on to bonds, contracts, and plats. And we have two conditional use certificates that are under this section. And I'm going to hand it over because I believe both of them will be presented by Councilman Richmond.
Thank you, Mayor. So, as Mayor mentioned, got two planning commission recommendations that were recommended at the last planning commission meeting to be considered by council tonight. Pursuant to our planning and zoning code, council is charged with either accepting the recommendation of planning commission, denying the recommendation, amending the recommendation, or basically punting it back to the planning commission for additional consideration and deliberation. The first of these matters is a temporary crossing of a riparian area in conjunction with the residents to be built at 33650 Jackson Road. I know in the packet there were a number of materials. If you haven't seen already, the easiest way to visualize it is on page 4 of what's called the topo review that contains a letter first from Mr. Pilarski summarizing, this conditional use need for this conditional use certificate, and you can also visualize on that page 4 the eventual permanent crossing by way of culvert, as well as the planned temporary crossing by way of timber bridge, which is the modification tonight. Just a real quick background. So the proposed dwelling is being located towards the rear of the property in order to access that section of the property. There needs to be a crossing installed for them to get over the creek that runs through the property. The creek contains a riparian zone on the property, the riparian zone being basically the area on each side of the creek that is required for stabilization and other attributes. Basically, there's a setback requirements, and you can see that as far as by way of the red dashed line on that topographical plan. And 117307, by the way, is the ordinance. So the conditional use permit is required to be issued by Village of Moreland Hills to allow the crossing. The kind of catch-22 is because before a conditional use certificate could be issued for a permanent crossing by way of a permanent culvert, a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers would be required. But before construction of the dwelling can happen, a crossing would be needed in order to affect the construction. So based on the recommendations of our engineer, there will be 2 conditional use certificates requested. The later one, the one not in front of us tonight, would be after the parties receive the Army Corps of Engineers permit. That later request would be for conditional use certificate for the permanent culvert. Tonight, it would be a conditional use permit, and I will use the language that the planning commission came up with. It would be for the approval of a conditional use permit for a temporary crossing of the riparian area using the timber bridge structure as proposed, subject to condition that the applicants may not apply for a certificate of occupancy until a permanent crossing has been approved by the Army Corps of Engineers and the village engineer and granted a separate conditional use permit. So I will make a motion to approve the planning commission's approval, or planning commission's recommendation for approval of that conditional use.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilman Richmond, seconded by Council President Yonke to approve the conditional use. Are there any questions for them?
I did have one question for you guys, I guess. This is for construction, correct?
Yeah.
So I assume there are gonna be some fairly heavy trucks going over this thing.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, is there, I didn't hear anything to say anything about like any standards, what, any requirements that are needed for this bridge? Is there anything like that?
It's inherent in the design of the timber matting. It's basically railroad ties that are made into sections specifically
I'm
designed.
assuming it's designed for that. I just didn't know.
Yeah,
Is it by approving this, is there any obligation legally by us if some trucks just, crash in and breaks the bridge or something?
No, our engineer has reviewed the plan for this temporary crossing and Jeff on the line.
He's still there, he's muted.
Okay, yeah, but, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, that you've been satisfied based on their plan showing that temporary bridge plus, I presume your experience with type of bridge structure.
Yeah, these type of temporary timber mats are used, all the time in construction. But they have a professional engineer that submits the plans and stamps them, so it's up to them to provide it, to make sure that it's adequate for the loading. And I have no reason to believe that it is deficient in any way. It will do what they want it to do. So that's why I would sign off on it. But it is on any of these, private development plans, it falls on the design engineer on the project to provide the proper design for whatever structure we're talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody else? Okay, then, Sherry, would you call the roll?
Sure. Mr. Lumberman?
Yes.
Mr. Fish?
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass? Yes. Mr. Yankee?
Yes.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Richmond again.
Okay, thank you. This second. So the second planning commission action that the second planning commission recommendation to be considered by council tonight was basically the planning commission's recommendation for approval of a 10-year modification to Hiram House Camp's conditional use certificate, allowing limited use of the camp's access road by the Orange School District for bus traffic only during limited times and subject to a number of conditions that I will describe in a few minutes. Apologize for those who've heard this before, but for the benefit of those who haven't been on council, I would like to briefly, I'll use those words in quotes because attorneys are not good. People put together a 100-page document called a brief, but I will try and do so. But I think it will be I think it will be helpful. So basically, back in 1999, Hiram House Camp was in the process of building an equestrian center, and they planned an access road to allow folks to staff and maintenance to access that equestrian center, but that was only to the point of the center and not beyond it. Around that same time, Orange Schools approached the camp to discuss a joint easement agreement to extend the access road to what is now Moreland Hills Elementary School. Around that time, two basic things happened. One was a culvert collapse between Brady Middle School and the high school. And so there's no way to get back through there. And the second, this was also around the time of the Columbine school shootings. And so they agreed upon an amendment. And basically, the basic easement was a 50-year amendment for emergency purposes and a 3-year amendment for construction relating to the culvert and the construction of the to-be-new Moreland Hills Elementary School. So then fast forward to 2000, around 2020, COVID hits and there's a heck of a lot of additional traffic, in large part due to parents who were no longer comfortable with having their children ride the buses. So the schools were basically the roads were overflowing with private vehicles in addition to the bus traffic. As a result, the schools approached Hiram House again for an amendment of their existing agreement. That amendment originally, I understand, was for vehicles, private vehicles and not buses. It was thought that that would work better. That was changed within a month later to buses. But also around that same time, or a little bit later than that, a number of residents from Hiram Trail and others discussed concerns with the village. Generally, those concerns centered around noise, traffic, and speed. And as a result of those concerns, as well as a result of the schools in Hiram House coming, I'm told, to similar conclusions on their own, that 1-year amendment was amended to help alleviate a number of the concerns that were mentioned by making sure they were buses only, by making sure it was ingress only and not ingress and egress, by respecting the no left turn signs at Hiram and Son. And so you would think, and some folks have said, okay, well, then why are we here? Why were we here last year? And the reason we were here last year and are here again this year is because that's really only one half of the story between the schools in Hiram House. While the school and Hiram House can enter into agreements with each other, Hiram House Camp, as well as all private residents, institutional residents, commercial residents, are bound by Moreland Hills ordinances, including the planning and zoning code. And pursuant to that code, and that code, one of those codes in 2013 was amended so that Hiram House was in what's called a U4 district, conservation open space district. Their recreational use was specifically added to that ordinance to be a conditional use, which meant in effect that their recreational use was grandfathered and could continue irrespective of the change in zoning, with one general proviso that that use was not materially changed, and the easement between Hiram House and Orange Schools for that daily use during the school year of the access road, was, it determined by our law department to be a change, a material change of use. And that can only happen pursuant to our codes if planning commission recommends and the village council agrees to that recommendation. So based on that, last year, the planning commission the Hiram House Camp came to the planning commission to ask for a more permanent use of the access road. And basically, as you may recall from the minutes that you've been provided with from last year, the planning commission recommended, which was later approved by council, in effect, a 1-year temporary modification of that conditional use certificate to allow the use of the access road, contingent on 7 different conditions, used by our schools, English only, used during the hours 7 to 9, and 2 to 4.
5 initially.
Five initially, 2 if you include the circulation study and the last line that is called a condition that the expiration of temporary modification. But right, the first 5, which are also the subject of planning commission's recommendation this year, were that it to be used by Orange schools as ingress only to the schools, used during 7 to 9 and 2 to 4, only used by Orange school buses without vehicular traffic unless it was for Hiram House use, that the gate would be locked at the end of the timeframes, that the prohibitions from Sump Center Road should be adhered to. And the 2 additional conditions last year were that Orange schools would be required to present a circulation study regarding alleviation of traffic issues, excuse me, within a year, approximately, and that the temporary modification would then expire at the end of this school year, the 2022-2023 school year. That was approved. And so following those recommendations, the schools did in fact put together that study. We've all been provided with the study, and they then, Hiram House then came to the planning commission this year, 2 weeks ago, in order to ask for a 10-year modification of the conditional use. And Moreland Hills Planning Commission basically recommended a 10-year modification subject to 7 conditions. Again, the first 5 of those conditions are the same as they've been subject to. The 6th condition was installing a detection system and relocating the left turn lane stop bar, remarking it. Both of these were among the recommendations in the traffic study, and the planning commission recommended this be a condition contingent upon approval of the city of Pepper Pike and any other governmental entities that would need approval, because that Gale Allison Drive is located in Pepper Pike. That was condition 6. Condition 7 is presentation to the commission, to the planning commission, of an updated traffic study no later than the end of the initial 5-year period of this 10-year period. And at that time, and in light of those first 6 conditions presumably as being fulfilled, the planning commission would evaluate whether continued use of the access road for year 6 through 10 would be warranted, and if no longer warranted, the planning commission would be empowered to recommend to the village council a cancellation of the modification at the end of year 5 rather than at the end of year 10. There was considerable discussion in the planning commission. It was thought that the study, if you recall, the delays, it was thought particularly in the afternoon, and the study mentioned this, I believe school and or Hiram House mentioned this in their letter, that particularly in the afternoon hours, that the detection system could reduce the delay. It looked like from 6 seconds per vehicle to about 1.5 seconds with detection. In one part of the afternoon, I think it was 3 to 4, but 2 to 3 looked like there would be almost no delay whatsoever with the addition of that detection system. So the thought was perhaps at the end of 5 years, there would need to be no use in the afternoon if the update would show what the study predicted, that there would be no delay during the afternoon, for example, and the markings of the stop bar where the buses can stop and go seemed like a good, easy recommendation. And there was also discussion about other potential measures that could be taken. There was discussion that Hiram House itself was planning on some new signage, and that they would look into additional measures. And there was a comment at the end of the recommendations by the planning commission that these conditions wouldn't preclude Orange Schools or Hiram House from exploring additional resolutions that could mitigate further the potential safety or the traffic and potential safety problems and issues. Our engineer, by the way, did report. You've seen his report. They did give validity to that study and did mention that it did recommend the detection and the markings as part of the recommendations. And our chief, Greg McCormick, did also give validity as to the potential safety issues. One of those safety issues being difficulty of getting emergency vehicles to the schools if they in fact overloaded by traffic, and also the additional possible queuing spilling into Chagrin Boulevard and exacerbating the issues. But excuse me, I think the commission realized that there's still, the thought was that the measures that they did suggest in the study seemed to make sense. One of them could possibly eliminate part of the need And that I think helped dictated the 5-year come back and let's a lot could change in that period of time. Commission thought 10 years without this condition was too long of a period of time till without being able to see what additional alternate measures were done and what, if any, effect they had. Let me ask Mr. Hannah, what procedurally would we at this time make the motion or discussion prior to the motion, or does it not really make a difference?
I think, in accordance with typical procedural rules, motion second, and then any discussion will take place following second.
So following that comment, thank you, by the way, I'm going to make a motion that council approve the conditional use modification as recommended by the planning commission.
No discussion?
That's coming next, ma'am.
Oh,
Is there a second? Okay, so there is a motion by Councilman Richmond, seconded by Councilman Irish Glass. Is there any discussion or questions by council members, particularly those who may not have been at the entire planning commission meeting? But anyway,
I do have a question. So, brought this up a couple of meetings ago, and I don't know what the result was. It was brought up earlier today about whether this would necessitate a 20-mile-per-hour school zone.
Yeah, my understanding is that because the property doesn't directly front Hiram, that under the Ohio Revised Code, it's not possible.
Thank you. So I guess I'll just kind of start with some thoughts on it. One is I appreciate the experiences of the residents on Hiram related to increased traffic from Pinecrest or from other sources. And I think that as maybe a separate concern that can be dealt with in a separate way. And I know there are different ways of dealing with that, especially people speeding. Ways that we can evaluate that, especially with some of the new equipment that the village is purchasing regarding speed boxes. I know there might be some things there. I don't think that necessarily affects whether we should look at this. I mean, this might contribute to some amount of increased traffic, but I don't think it would attribute at all to increased speeding or other types of safety issues in a negative way. I actually think it would promote safety in that kind of breaks up the traffic, the bus traffic for the schools, and I think multiple avenues is good for congestion. Different ways of buses going, I think is bus routes. I think is a good way to address it. I read the study. I thought the study made sense. I thought the recommendation was well thought out. I also think that there's an air quality benefit to reducing idle times at places like school, buses idling. And this is something that's not, something that other school districts look at as well as what's the air quality effect of people waiting in line or buses idling, and reducing that has a benefit. So for those reasons, I support this, and I support the schools. Or I'm likely going to vote yes on this, and kind of that's some of the rationale. Also think that there might be additional ways that the school could in the future address traffic and further alleviate traffic, but I think this is still an improvement on current bus traffic and routing of the school system. That's kind of I'll throw out my thoughts first.
Council President.
Thank you. I'm encouraged that the steps we took last year. I was at the planning commission meeting. The residents in attendance, did indicate there were, they didn't have any noise or traffic issues as a result of the bus. So I believe those measures that we did take helped alleviate this. I was also encouraged, to the school board members in attendance, did acknowledge that there's a traffic. I remember Mr. Bilski saying, it's a blessing and a curse to have, kind of everything on one campus. But again, due to the layout, there's only, really one ingress or egress, and that's Gill Allison, without the use of Hiram Trail. I do know, they take it seriously, and we'll be working with Pepper Pike and to look at some of the changes they can do with Gill Allison to help alleviate it. Certainly there was a safety concern, as pointed out in Mr. Filarski's summary. There's, drone footage of a line of cars waiting to get in, and another car, came out. Imagine it, and I think it's 28 buses or something like that into that. So you've got, unfortunately, it's not legal for someone to do, but you just run the risk of making that line even longer. Maybe people running behind doing that. I think if doing this with the allowing for use of Hiram Trail, if it helps alleviate any bit of that pickup drop off times, then the council should consider with the recommendations.
Were there any discussions during that meeting around requirements for the district to work towards finding another solution? And if so, like a annual report, progress?
Well, excuse me, the ones, we'll certainly add, missed something, but there was discussion along those lines. And that's what, that's what generated the comment at the bottom of the recommendation. And it was thought that a 1-year report back or a 1-year modification, or 5 individual 1-year modifications was more procedurally than we should impose. I mean, that basically is what dictated the 5-year comeback. In the interim, we did hear that the schools did pledge to look to take additional measures. I personally believe them. They're paying a price to use the drive. They've got they've got governmental scrutiny. I presume they would prefer to be able to not have to pay, be able to use measures on their own and not have to add. But based on all the studies, all the potential safety issues and queuing and traffic problems are there and are there now. So I think we all deferred to want to defer to them to continue. I certainly don't think it would be precluded if our chief and our safety committee had some additional measures they might suggest from them. They have some from the study. They've got, as a transportation manager. I do believe that they will be looking
Yeah, I concur with Steve. I don't see, oh, and I should add, you know, when we were discussing it with them, they don't need to wait 5 years to come back and say, hey, this is what we're doing.
Right.
If, you know, I have a, you know, it's my understanding that they're probably working on this sooner than later. And, you know, we'll be able to demonstrate, they're just gonna sit on their hands until the 5 years is up and say, yeah, no, we're working. You know, like I said, I know they're committed. I've got 2 boys at Moreland Hills and my daughter's at Brady, and trying to get back there is difficult. Even with the school buses not in that one, so. But again, you know, for what Steve had mentioned, there are in the other alternative, which was in the study, was the road. And I think the two, like 2.6 million, which really is a piece. You know, from a financial standpoint and from a environmental standpoint, the area of Wiley Creek they'd have to cross is much broader than the section where it is now. I think the bridge was a ball field.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I would be missing, mentioning that.
I remember seeing that in there as an option.
Very difficult option.
Very difficult, yeah, I agree.
What did the residents have to say? Does Moreland Hills represent the residents? What did the residents say?
So let me, I'm gonna address that, but I'm gonna ask, since this really isn't a public hearing, if, you know, if you wouldn't mind asking the chair of the meeting, which actually isn't me, but the mayor at this point, but let me just address that. I think, and I appreciate one thing I said at the beginning of the planning commission is we've got a host of very important residents across the board, and I absolutely included our individual residents as well as our school and higher house camp residents. You know, we've got, besides our trail residents, we do a lot of residents that go to and attend those schools. But I do believe that we made a very concentrated effort to bring in residents and listen to their comments, and a good part of those conditions 1 through 5 were generated as a result of your comments. I think residents basically made very good comments regarding additional monitoring of speed and other concerns regarding police presence and speed detection. And I think those are absolutely important comments, and as you heard the mayor say earlier, and sure that the chief would agree that they'd be happy to listen and determine whether any of those measures would also be warranted. So I think the process itself, you know, generally by way of public hearings, gives the residents a chance, and I think, you know, we've tried very hard to incorporate comments, and I think have one of the other things I mentioned to the planning commission briefly was, you know, I would love us to have a magic wand that could grant everybody what they're wanting in a meeting like this. But I can say that we work very hard to take into consideration all of those wants from all the different parties that are part of an issue. And at the end of the day, if we can say we work very hard to incorporate as much of those wants to come up with what we need to do, what we're called to do pursuant to our codes, that's the best we can do. But I do believe we have made a very big concentrated effort to incorporate those residents' concerns, including yours, and it shouldn't be thought that at the end of this hearing that means that no concerns will be listened to afterwards.
I'll just say, I think traffic decisions are challenging, because it has to go somewhere. And I know there's always pressures on traffic. I know that, so every now and then there's conversations about whether there should be or could be reworking to be a left-hand turn off of Hiram Trail. That's always a discussion. Just at our facilities meeting, we had a discussion about Bentleyville Road, where there's a double stop sign, and some residents, I think, prefer the double stop sign. Some wish there's a single stop sign. That's where it narrows down to just one lane and one. And a lot of these, that's the challenge, is that traffic is always going to go. There's always kind of increased pressures on traffic, and is was mentioned earlier. A lot of the I think the traffic concerns on Hiram are related to things other than the buses, right? Other increased traffic, Pinecrest, from other sources, potential speeding, and those I think could be addressed in different ways. But I don't think that, and I'll say even with the buses, they have to go somewhere, and it's through Moreland Hills one way or through Moreland Hills another, right? So even if they're going on Chagrin, that's still buses going through Moreland Hills, still residents there. So I think those are never easy answers. There's always challenges and trade-offs with traffic related things. As we're specifically talking about a conditional use permit, and what our role is in that, and are we in this looking to say, yes, we will make this exception for conditional use, to make a conditional use permit, which I think this is why my vote is yes, is kind of in our role. But where those buses go in a busing plan, I think really is for the school district. And if there are better ways for the school to decide where to route those buses or how to route them, I think really it's good to have those discussions in front of the school board, which is also a public body and can also take public comments and comments from residents. So this is kind of the narrow way I'm looking at this conditional use permit. But I think a lot of the other discussions could be appropriately in front of the school board.
I would concur with both Councilman Schmidt and Councilman Emmerman, that we do have a process in this village to listen to public input. And in this issue in particular, we've had 2 public hearings on this where we've invited the public to come here and speak. And there have been some people that have spoken. And I think this body, while things have changed in the last year in some seats and in the mayor's seat, I think we do provide continuity and knowledge here. We do have that on this council, and we have that in my role, because I was involved 1 year ago. And we do carefully consider residents' comments, and I think what Councilman Emmerman said about some of these other issues is there are going to be different opinions on this. There are going to be people that feel like they want this because it's alleviating congestion for their children going to school, and they have difficulty and they have safety concerns. There's other people it impacts different ways. It's very similar to the Bentleyville Road issue. That issue we spent a lot of time on, and I just had recently another resident ask for a different solution, which is yield signs instead of stop signs. And we've studied this issue and, you know, right now we're going to stay the course on the decision we made there, because we believe it's the right decision for all the residents of the village. I would also say that the council, when we put the conditional uses in last time, I'm not repeating everything that Councilman Richmond said, but we were concerned about compliance, and we did know, we asked our police department to measure compliance, and we found that there was initially non-compliance. And then when we measured later, we found it had improved compliance. And then we asked our police chief to do it again before considering the extension of this conditional use permit. And we found that the compliance on the things that we put in place to address concerns a year ago are actually being followed mostly. We're not 100% of the time. And I think the chief and I are talking about what can we do to work with Hiram and schools to try to get it to 100%. But I do believe that the measures that we put in place have had a material impact on some of the things that were happening early on. And I also acknowledge that Ms. Nicolai brought up some good points at the Planning Commission meeting as well, because she and her team are working with the school to think about other ways to even improve that further, using some automatic technology and some other things. I don't think that those things are necessarily something that should be put in a conditional use permit, because I think they're too specific. I think they need to have some leeway to understand their property and do what they think is best on their property to address some of these things. But I'm encouraged to see that we have great organizations in this village, like Hiram House Camp and like the schools, that are willing to work on issues with us and to come up with the best solutions we can, even if they don't satisfy every resident 100%. So that's my view. I'm not voting this evening. I did vote at the Planning Commission and I voted to make the recommendation to the council because I agreed with the conditions. But I would just say that I do support council should you decide to vote yes on this conditional use permit.
And I'll just add one more thing, you know, based on public comments, that's why we're here. That's how last year we came up with these conditions. Try and alleviate the concerns of the residents that are directly impacted. Certainly, I mean, I grew up in Moreland Hills before Pinecrest, before, you know, any of that, Eaton, anything was there. And Hiram was, you know, you could turn left, you know, because it wasn't one like that. You know, and with it, and with the changes, I understand, you know, being on that street, cars speeding by, just increased traffic in general. And from what, you know, what I hear from council members, that's an issue we're willing to tackle and we're willing to address and willing to, and, you know, and as the mayor, or as Mayor Spencer said, you know, he's gonna, you know, discuss that with you. So, you know, we're trying to, you know, whittle away as much as we can. And, you know, whether it's speed detection, increased, you know, police presence, or making modifications, then, you know, that's something we're going to.
Yeah, may I just say one thing? I appreciate the personal attention that you're giving me tonight. I appreciate it. I feel better. And you didn't have to do that. It's very personal. I would just say 3 things. It seems as though a 5 or 10 year continual use will likely make this permanent. So it just feels, it's already feeling very permanent to me, and it's been 3 years. So I just want to be open to the fact that 5 years makes it permanent. Are you all, I'm not asking you, rhetorically, are you all prepared for that to become a permanent use? Because in 5 years, it will become what it is now, which is, that's what it is. The second thing is, it was never about noise, and that $2.6 million is probably going to have to be spent and a levy have to be raised, because Gail Allison's access road is not a solution. And there has been traffic, and I said this already, so I won't repeat myself. That's not what this is about, but there's been traffic for 20 years. So it isn't just from the COVID, and so it wasn't about noise. The school will have to come up with a solution on the campus in addition to using Gail Allison. It is not a solution, but it will become a permanent use, I feel. And I worry about that, but I just want you to know, if you make it 5 years, it's permanent. It's not going away. And the superintendent has put in writing that he always intended this to be indefinite. So there is a little bit, I feel that there was a little bit of conspiracy in his mind, or their mind, excuse me, Mr. Richmond, if I sound negative towards somebody or a group. I do think there was a predetermined intention of making this an indefinite use. And so it isn't honest to say that they've been working year by year. There is an intention to abscond the property for their use, for the school's use, our school's use. I stand corrected. And finally, on the board, the chairman of the board of Hiram House Camp, probably a wonderful person, is also a principal of a commercial real estate development firm. And that property of Hiram House, they can do what they want, I believe. But I suspect that if we are not cautious about how willing we are to give access to that property, I believe more property will be developed. And that will substantially change the quality and the culture of the village. I might not be around by then, but as a steward of the planet, I don't want more development if we don't need it. So I just want to caution us. It's a cautionary tale. And again, I appreciate the time.
Do you have a comment, Ms.?
Am I allowed to say something?
Yes, you may.
Two things. So the reason I was late is I just came from our governance committee meeting for the board. So first of all, the idea that this modification of this condition, that our thought that it would be permanent, is not a discussion on the table at Hiram. We have never gone in to say that this is an indefinite. In fact, the school came in and asked us, would we consider doing this indefinitely? And we said no. I just reviewed that again this evening with my committee. And then the comment about the thought that because my board chair is a developer, that Hiram House would potentially change hands or change usage. We have gone in, we have been here for 127 years. And there has been no conversation about that changing for the next 100 years. So the thought that any residents have concern that that is going to happen has never been a discussion ever. So I just want to make that very clear.
I'm glad. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you both for your comments. I'm going to ask that we end public comments at the moment, but thank you. And I appreciate your comments. And I'm going to ask council if there's any other additional. We did have a motion in a second on recommending or on approving the recommendations from the planning commission. I want to see if there's any other comment before I ask Sherry to call the roll.
There's one very brief one. And I'll just say to the idea of Hiram House, not being developed for Maine, that was always my assumption that Hiram House would always be there. But it's such a gem. It's such a gem to our village. There's always this like little fear. But I know it's not a real fear, but it's such an amazing facility and parcel that I think every Moreland Hills resident wants Hiram House to remain. And it's always just in the back of the mind. So we know it's not going nowhere, and I appreciate you reiterating.
Right, and it's in writing.
Yeah.
It's in the minutes.
And the mayor and I believe the rest of the council probably agrees with that.
Everybody was on the street.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just one quick comment. I think, I think comments regarding an opinion of some motivation, I I think those are counterproductive and I think they're not warranted, as I mentioned, even a planning commission meeting, especially but I know of Dr. Campbell and all personnel in Hiram House, but productive discussion regarding safety, traffic, well-being issues of all residents is always appreciated. And so I hope those comments will continue and others will not. And lastly, I reiterate Mr. Emmerman said, we're very fortunate to have the oldest and the best camps, especially what they do programming wise, with leadership skills and how they mold young people, both in our neighborhood as well as under Trollis, and what an amazing job the schools do, and especially Orange and Chagrin, and how extremely very important, whether you lived here 1 year or 50 years or everything in between, all our residents are, and just going to continue to do our best to, as much as we can, make everybody happy as much as possible goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richmond. Anybody else?
Mayor, I just wanted to add one very brief thing that I didn't hear anybody say, so I just want to make sure the reason for voting tonight, one of the reasons, aside from all the many things that we discussed today, one of them was to give the school some ability to plan for next year. I mean, there's a timeliness factor here, I guess is all I wanted to say about that, just to add that to this discussion, that, you know, if we put this off, then it could have repercussions that are probably undesirable.
So that comment, Councilman. Sherry, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish,
Abstain.
Mrs. Irish Glass,
Yes.
Mr. Bianchi,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. We're gonna move on to.
Good night.
Good night. We're gonna move on to ordinances and resolutions, and tonight we have a number of them. So I'm gonna start with ordinance 2023-27, an ordinance authorizing change order 1 with Grade Line, Jackson Valley Forest Main extension declaring an emergency. That one goes to Councilman Fish.
Nice easy one after the last.
Yeah.
This one is a project that's been completed and originally was quoted at $58,694. The equipment cost came in at $52,344. So there was a savings of $6,350. So this is just for a change order to allow that adjustment to the books. So with that, I would make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to suspend the rules and a second. Would you call the roll?
Sure. Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass, Mr. Yankee,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
All right, that if we make a motion for passage of ordinance number 2023-27.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Sherry, do you know who made that motion?
Mr. Vincent, Mrs. Irish Glass.
Please.
Mr. Emmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish,
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass, Mr. Yankee,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yeah.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Okay, we have 2023-28, an ordinance authorizing change order number 2 with the Vallejo Company for the 2022 asphalt program and declaring up. See, that goes to Councilman Vincent.
Yes, Mayor. I will probably, I'll just say I will probably mess this up, so bear with me, but it's a relatively straightforward one, which is similar to the previous. It is a change order to adjust the final price of the contract by reducing it by $206,106.16. And I, talking to engineer Filarski, this largely was partly because of some, sounds like some value engineering type items that he did in terms of the sections of the roads that they required, as well as not using some intermediate asphalt. It was a large chunk of it, 146,000 and some odd amount that was not used, as well as an inspection item at the end, about 25,000. So I would make a motion to suspend the rules.
Okay, we have a motion to suspend the rules by Councilman Bissell, second by Councilman Fish. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Everly,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Irish Glass. Mr. Yaki,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes. Okay, I guess now I would make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilman Bissell, second by Moreland. Call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Everly.
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass.
Yes.
Mr. Yaki,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
2023-29, an ordinance authorizing change order number 2 with Trade Line Inc.
Another change order.
2022 again, drainage program, declaring an emergency, goes to Councilwoman Irish Glass.
Change order number 2, there was a change order number 1 in February of 2023 for $6,400 and some odd dollars. This was not included in that. It's just a $287 change order cost for inspection fees that weren't included in that original one back in February. So there should be no other expenditures, and this should be the final cost for this project. Motion to suspend.
Yeah, we have a motion to suspend the rules. And a second, would you call the roll?
Sure. Mr. Everman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Mr. Yaki,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve the ordinance 2023-29.
Second again. Okay, we have a motion to second. Steve, please.
Yeah.
Would you call the roll, please?
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Irish Glass. Mr. Yaki,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2023-30, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with SET Inc. for the 2023 Green Tree Wastewater Treatment Plant Equalization Tank Project, declaring an emergency. Councilman Fish.
Okay, so this one we've heard about before, because the first time it went out, we didn't get any bids, so we put it out again. There were 2 bids. The lower was 431,660. The other was 527,685. There's actually an adjustment to that too. It's like $6,000 less. They're going to use a plastic type pipe instead of concrete. The reason for that is the concrete company wouldn't even sell us that pipe because they couldn't seal it. And wouldn't pass their testing. So with that, Jeff recommended that we go ahead and set up with the SET, whatever that stands for company, with the $431,660, I guess minus the 6,000. And just to note that these were both, even the lower one was 9.29% above our original estimates. But that does fall within the 10% variance that we're allowed. So with that, Jeff presented it. So at this point, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Fish, seconded by Councilman Vincent. Please call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Everman,
Same.
Mr. Fish,
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Yes. Mr. Yaki,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
And with that, I'd like to make a motion to passage.
Okay, we have a motion for passage. Mr. Fish, seconded by Mr. Yonke. Please call the
Can I ask a question? Is this the right time to ask a question? I'm sorry. The plastic, and maybe it's a question for the engineer, but the plastic sanitite replacement, does that require other changes to the plan for the EQ? Like, does it have a ripple effect if you're not using RCP tank for this tank, or is it just that one swap out? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, backfill, or I don't know what changes it would amount to.
Yeah. Good question. Everything regarding the 60-inch pipe itself will remain the same. One change is we have a sanitary lateral that was going to actually pass through the RCP pipe. That cannot be done, so we're just gonna route it in the same direction of the pipe and tie in a little bit downstream into a manhole. So it just affects the sanitary connection from the house.
It's not a, so yeah, it's not a significant change then.
Correct.
Okay, that was my only question, curious about that. And by the way, Councilman Fish, SCT, I believe, S stands for Susani. We've worked with them on some district projects, and I know that's the last name of the owner. So it's something, I think it's engineering something or other, so.
Any more questions?
Mr. Everman,
Same.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass.
Yes.
Mr. Yankee.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Thank you. The next one is 2023-31, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to purchase one 2023 GMC Canyon SUV from Junction Auto Family for the building department and declaring an emergency, and that goes to Councilwoman Irish Glass.
The service director solicited 4 quotes for replacement with the building department's 2014 Jeep Patriot SUV and received 2 quotes, one from Lambert for $45,850, which would require locating or ordering a vehicle, and one from Junction Auto Family to provide GMC Canyon at $45,839. The service director is recommending the GMC Canyon at price not to exceed what was quoted. I found that this has been budgeted. It's on page 1 of our capital improvements budget plan. So I'm going to make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to suspend the rules and a second by Council President Yankee. Call the roll.
Mr. Everman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Yes. Mr. Yankee.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
I would like to, if there's no discussion, make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-20.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Irish Glass, second by Councilor Fish.
31, right?
2031.
23-31.
Sorry, 31.
31? Yes, 31.
Yeah. Just like it.
It's 31, yes.
31, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Everman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Yes. Mr. Yankee.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Okay, the next one is 2023-32, and this is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Orange City School District for a school resource officer declaring an emergency. And this goes to Council President Yankee.
Thank you, Mayor. So a little backstory, the school district had reached out to the Moreland Hills Police Department to have a dedicated school resource officer. Currently, there are police staffed at the school, but not as a dedicated resource officer. The memorandum of understanding in Exhibit A is the agreement between the school district and the police department. And essentially, it states the roles and responsibilities of this resource officer and also the terms. So while the resource officer is being used at the school, they will reimburse the village for all the expenses and, payroll, insurance, any costs that the village would typically have will be reimbursed from the village. Again, I know this has been in the works for a while. And it's supported by the police department and by the school. Todd, was there anything you wanted to add
I just want to say this is a tremendous opportunity for the Moreland Hills Police Department Village as a whole to enter into this memorandum. The current program with Pepper Pike has been going for about 19 years. And Todd Bennett has, is the foundation of that success. So for the village to, and it highlights the relationship that the Village of Moreland Hills has with the schools, that they want to enter into, spending more money on additional resources and paying for one of our officers to be there. I think it's a great opportunity, and I look forward to working with the Orange Schools and the officer that will be assigned to the school. Not coincidentally, is Officer Bennett, Pepper Pike's younger brother, Scott Bennett. So the Bennetts are really cornering the market on school resource officers. So, but no, I just appreciate your consideration, and I'm looking forward to moving forward with the Orange Schools, and it solidifies our good relationship that we have with the district. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'll add one more thing before I make the motion to suspend the rules. Having kids in the school district, it's great when I have to go up there and, I see familiar faces, looking out for my kids. We're just blessed to have such a outstanding police department. That was really evident in community fishing days. They're really a part of the community, and not just, some police departments maybe aren't so ingrained in our day to day. So it is a great opportunity. So with that, I will make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to suspend the rules by our council president, seconded by Council Vincent.
Mr. Emmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Fish?
Question.
Yes. I was asked to abstain on the last one. Should I also abstain on this? I completely agree with it. However, because my wife's on the school board, should I not be?
I don't think that you're required to, but it would be fine.
Required to or?
I don't think you're required to abstain, but if you wish to abstain, just so that everything is clean.
Then I'll abstain, yeah.
Thank you. This is our. Yes. Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Is there a motion for passage?
Make a motion for passage.
We have a motion for Council President, seconded by Council Richmond. Great. Yes.
Mr. Fish?
Abstain.
Mrs. Irish Glass? Yes. Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Mayor, I just wanted to add, on top of the comments that were made, that I know some folks are looking at this as an additional safety presence, but also having experienced Officer Todd since its inception, that the program does such an amazing job of, in addition to being a necessary safety presence, of having the resource officer be part friend, part teacher, part mentor, part counselor, and that has been equally, if not more important at times during these kids' lives, and applaud everybody that made this come together.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank council for voting on this. I just will let you know that the school board president, as well as the superintendent, have called me both expressing their excitement and support for this, and that they're so happy that our police department is stepping up and working very well with them. So I want you guys to know that. So thank you for voting.
The next one is 2023-33. And that's an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a pass-through sale purchase development agreement with Cuyahoga County Land Reutilization Corporation and declaring an emergency. That also goes to Council President Young.
Thank you, Mayor Spencer. There is a piece of property on Berkeley. It's a vacant piece of property. It's narrow and has topography challenges that it's now owned by the state of Ohio forfeiture or the county website. The village has an opportunity to take possession and add it to our land bank. If we so desire, part of the, so it would go to the Cuyahoga County. Okay, go to the county land bank, and then prior to being transferred to us, all delinquent taxes, there it is. All delinquent taxes would be wiped out, and we would have no obligation to pay taxes on it, as long as it's kept in its current state. So really, it's a win for us, to, be able to, it's at no cost, and we get to, even though it's an acre, a little under an acre, we get to protect a piece of land, in a sensitive area.
Actually $1.
Yeah.
It costs $1.
Yeah.
$1. Sorry.
Line goes across, is that?
On the backside,
Is that,
I'm sorry, that was me doing that. I was looking at the parcel on the county map and I figured I'd share it when we were talking, Bill. I didn't mean to mess you up.
that's for. So with that, I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to suspend the rules by Council, seconded by Councilman Mitchell. Call roll.
Mr. Ammerman?
Yes.
Mr. Fish?
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass? Yes. Mr. Yankee?
Yes,
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
and we prevent, oh,
Just one question for what he says. Said is there like back taxes or something owed on this? Because you said as long as it remains the way it is, so if we ever change anything, do we then owe some large sum of money or anything like that?
They've been wiped out. They get
Okay.
wiped out as it goes to the land banks, so that we don't have obligation on it. But there were back taxes, which is why the property taxes have not been paid since, I believe, 2014.
Okay.
So eventually, it was confiscated, the property was confiscated.
Okay. So we wouldn't be penalized in the future by doing something. So thank you.
I mean, that could have.
Really, because it's not buildable.
Yeah.
So the person decided not to pay any taxes on it.
So I will move for passage.
Second.
Yeah, who you call it?
We have a move to passage in a second by the same parties.
Yeah. Mr. Ammerman?
Yes.
Mr. Fish?
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass? Yes. Mr. Yankee?
Yes.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. I think that makes a lot of sense to accept that. So the next is 2023-34, a resolution adopting the alternative tax budget of the village of Moreland Hills for the fiscal year 2023 and declaring an emergency. And Councilman Everman, you seem to get these things, so thank you.
Yeah, and that's not on, but thanks for Sean for walking me through this every single year, but this one was easier since it's better than go years in a row. So every year we have to tell the county what to collect in terms of real estate taxes and then how much amount we want to be get of that. So this is really just that function is based on our charter. We have certain millage that we have our property tax. And then in the very last column, if you're looking at Schedule 1, we have numbers in there that we're requesting from the county. And don't base that as revenue. Those are extra high because we will only get what we ask for. So if we ask for less and we collect more, we only get what we ask for. So Prashant always reminds me that that's not our anticipated revenue. That's just to make sure we don't happen to ask for too little. So this is a requirement that we do every year. With that, I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to suspend the rules by Councilman Everman. Second, Councilwoman Glass, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Ammerman?
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Mr. Yaki.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Passage.
Okay, we have a passage second by the same party. Please call the roll.
Mr. Everman.
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Yes. Mr. Yaki.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Sean, we have. The last ordinance we have this evening is 2023-35, an ordinance providing additional appropriations, transferring items already appropriated and declaring an emergency. This one also goes to Councilman.
Thank you. So there's two proposed amendments to the appropriations, both under the wastewater treatment plant contractual. The first one for $85,000 is with regards to the flow equalization tank. The second one for $7,000 is at the Green Tree wastewater treatment plant. There was a need for additional UV disinfectant, some work on the filters, and some studies that need to be done on that. The transfers are transfers we always see from the general fund to other fund, and the police and fire fund, and the general fund, retirement fund. So with that, we have to make payments to CUI. So that's so with that, I make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second. Okay, we have a motion from the rule by Councilman Herman, seconded by Council President. Please call the roll.
Mr. Everman.
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Yes. Mr. Yaki.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Passage.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion for passage by Councilman Herman, seconded by Councilman Fish. Any questions? Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Everman.
Yes.
Mr. Fish.
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass. Yes. Mr. Yaki.
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everybody. That concludes the legislation for this evening. I'll move on to miscellaneous business by any members of council. Does anyone have something? President?
I had one and I'll be brief. So Councilman Richmond's first official meeting as planning chair, we didn't have any applications. His second official meeting, had a lot going on. I just want to commend him for running the meeting. I commend council for really listening to the concerns of the residents, because that's what we're here to do. We, as Steve said, we don't have a magic wand to make everyone happy, but I'm really happy with the outcome. Should be satisfied that we're concerns. It's what we thought.
I completely agree, Bill. And I feel the same way. If we can look our residents in the eye like we did this evening and tell them this is the reason why we're voting, the way we're voting, or our view is this way, we're doing our job, and I think we did it very well. So thank you guys.
Thanks. We got one more. So
Yes, sir.
I was able to talk with Safi, our student civic leadership winner, I guess, or the successful applicant. So she was not able to come tonight. I think she does some kind of night school at this time, so she wasn't able to come get sworn in, but she is interested in starting immediately. So I know there's a green meeting on green commission meeting on the 19th. So I imagine she's going to want to be there. So
Parks is on.
okay, so then that would have to be Joy going to Parks then.
Yeah, Joy should be moving the park.
Yes, Joy moving to Parks. I don't know why I always split this up. But okay, but either way, Safi is wanting to start immediately, so we'll just find the time to come in and have her get sworn in.
Absolutely, I can certainly do that, and then I can easily find the time to do it, and we can do it in front of council later if that's,
And we'll have to swear Joy into Parks.
Okay.
So between now and 19th, we should do that. I don't know if we could maybe do it on the nineteenth, you're gonna be
I
there.
plan to be there.
At the Parks meeting on the 19th?
So I can certainly do it at the beginning of the meeting. If it's acceptable to her. If she'd rather come in.
Sorry, one point, the Parks meeting is going to be virtual.
Oh, that's right. It's virtual. So we're gonna, thank you for.
So we
reminding
could do it, but.
I'll be in contact, we'll find a time.
And then
Okay, yeah,
That's
so,
right.
okay,
Oh, yes, and I actually do have one more miscellaneous business is we have two new members coming on to the Parks Commission. One of them is, we have time, but it's not gonna start until July. But one of them will not be around for me to make a motion
Sworn
to
in
get
before
sworn
the
in
July
for the
meeting.
meetings. Would like to make a motion tonight. Or ask, do I make it or do I ask someone to make it? It's to appoint Tom Spalding to the Parks Commission.
I'm safest to ask for this.
Okay, so we've had two of them. One is Tom Spalding, the other one is Brian Frederick, who are both excited to join Parks and express interest. And so I'd like to ask council for a motion to approve the appointment of Tom Spalding to Parks.
He, an applicant?
he was. When I called him, let him know our decision, he expressed interest to be involved and, based on his background, he seemed like a really good fit.
Spalding.
Okay.
He said he made a motion, nobody said. Okay, I think the council president.
You did it.
Okay, got some fish. So call roll.
Mr. Remmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Fish?
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass? Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Benjamin?
Yes.
Goodness for Sherry, or with that one that got done. Thank you, Sherry.
You're welcome.
You have to do another one.
Not tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have
We have time
time for him. He's just having trouble being out of town and I'm gonna be gone when he's back, so we need to do it so I can. Steer him in.
Yes.
So anybody else have any other business?
Mayor, just to let you guys know, I just showed Todd on our auction site, our garbage truck went up on auction last Friday and it started at 20,000, so there's still 9 days. It's at 101,500.
That's a third of the cost of the
Not
item.
my estimated.
Thank you for the update on that.
Now it's 101.
That's pretty cool. That's good. Keep it going.
There's something in our charter that requires us to address each other as councilwoman or
Don't know. I think it's always been protocol. The answer. It's actually in there.
I'm not aware that there is.
that.
I'm not aware that there's a requirement.
It's just thinking about sort of neutralizing things and actually making things easier to say. Maybe it's council person or council member. Just thinking about some of our initiatives and our commissions.
Yeah, I recall we did make some gender changes to commissions ago. But there might, I think it's certainly well taken that maybe there are some additional ones to be made. Looking into.
externally, I always refer to myself as a council member and not a council. That's
I just
Remember
thought,
that.
I saw council members somewhere and I thought, that might be easier to say than councilwoman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also to think about the neutrality of the position. Moving.
To me, I could honestly, the way I think about it is you should do the way people want to be addressed, and I'll do my best if people prefer to be addressed a certain way, because so
Did the-
throw that in.
throw that out there.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I just sort of picked up from what I've heard from others previously.
You just changed my name.
Yeah, make it easier. Yeah, just a joke. What's your name? Yeah, single syllable names like fish. It's really.
My CEO told me that she's not gonna call me councilman because she knows my name. She's like, I'm not calling you councilman. I said, oh, that's fine, that's whatever. She goes, because I know your name. In other words, she calls councilman or woman, councilman or woman when she doesn't remember their name.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Anybody else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn. So, Yonke
Yankee and Fish.
and Council President, member. Excuse me, he wants to keep the president.
Yeah.
Okay, so council, be more.
Yes.
Dr. Glass? Yes. Mr. Yankee?
Yes.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Thanks, everybody.
You could say, gentlemen, Marwood.
Esteemed gentlemen. I thought that they were gonna do that. Not you guys. I'm full of surprise at that too, because I know the word it says each when I use
Good night, all. I'll see you.
it.